What is going on, everybody? I hope you all are having a fantastic week. Welcome back to the channel for the second Deal or No Deal episode of the 2021-22 season. As of today, the trade deadline is about exactly 2 months away, which may sound like a lot, but I feel like this season has just flown by, so the deadline's going to be here before we know it. And over the past couple of weeks, there has been a lot of interesting names in trade rumors, so I thought now would be the perfect time for an episode of Deal or No Deal, and it still leaves us time to do probably one more of these before the deadline actually hits. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to every single one of you who took the time to come up with and actually submit a mock trade on the community tab. There was well over 300 for this episode, so obviously I can't feature them all, but I did read them all and I appreciate every single one of you guys. The first mock trade of the video comes from Hayden, who says to Arizona, Jeremy Swayman; to Boston, Phil Kessel, Cam Deanan, and a 2024 second round pick. Also goes on to give some reasoning as to why he submitted this mock trade, and I think it's some pretty good reasoning. And I wanted to start off with this one because I want to talk about the whole Jeremy Swayman situation a little bit. Jeremy Swayman has been very good for the Boston Bruins ever since breaking into the league last season. Since then, he's been an above average goaltender in the NHL when you look at his stats compared to the rest of the league, and throughout the majority of the season, himself and Linus Ullmark looked like a very solid tandem. And then when Tuukka Rask came back, Jeremy Swayman kind of got shafted and was just immediately sent down to the AHL despite having really good numbers, which is really unfortunate for Swayman because he would be an NHL goaltender on many other teams around the league. Some teams he would probably even be the starter. Now, that being said, I am going to have to say no deal to this trade just because Boston came out and said that they still view Jeremy Swayman as their goaltender for the future and they don't have any plans on moving him. He's still young, and also for this to work, I feel like Boston would almost certainly have to retain 50% of Phil Kessel's salary, so for those reasons, I'm going to say no deal to this one, although I am really intrigued by the idea of Kessel going back to Boston. Moving along now to the next mock trade. This one comes from Eliminator, who says to Detroit, Brandstrom; to Ottawa, Zadina, and a 2022 third round pick. Also goes on to give some good reasoning as to why this trade might work, how both players could use a fresh start. Philip Zadina is a player that has been talked about a lot recently in terms of a potential trade candidate for the Red Wings. To me personally, I honestly just don't think that makes sense at the moment. Sure, maybe he never develops into what Detroit expected he was going to develop into when they selected him 6th overall, but if you trade him right now, you're likely not going to get a significant return at all. Like this mock trade here, for an example, I'm going to say no deal to, especially since Detroit is the team having to throw in the draft pick. You're getting the older player here, and although he is at a position of need for the Red Wings, which is left shot defenseman, what has always been, the biggest gripe on Eric Brandstrom's game and why he hasn't been able to carve out a career as a regular NHLer yet, it's because his defensive game is very bad. And if Brandstrom was in Detroit, I feel like his situation wouldn't really change at all. Detroit kind of just had a player like Eric Brandstrom when Dennis Cholowski was still in the organization. He was a 2016 first round pick, has some really good offensive attributes, but his defensive liabilities and defensive deficiencies are the biggest reason why he wasn't able to be a regular in the lineup. So I feel like Brandstrom would kind of just be another Dennis Cholowski situation in Detroit. This next mock trade comes from Hayden, who says John Klingberg to Boston for DeBrusk, a second, which turns into a first if Klingberg re-signs with Boston, and Urho Vakanainen. Dallas would also likely need to retain half of Klingberg's contract. I really like the idea of this mock trade, and I feel like a lot of you guys do as well. This was one of the most liked mock trades on the post. I definitely feel like Boston is going to be one of the more active and aggressive teams at the deadline in terms of wanting to make a big splash, because they're still a very good team. They're playing very well right now, but the core is getting older. Bergeron's a UFA at the end of the season, and some people view this as one of the last years that the Boston Bruins with this core can be true Stanley Cup contenders. And getting John Klingberg would really add a whole other dynamic to the Boston Bruins. They're not a team that gets a ton of offense from their blue line. Sure, you have McAvoy, and I guess you can throw Grzelcyk in there, who produces at a decent rate offensively, but aside from those two guys, they don't get a whole lot offensively from their defense. Imagine adding a guy like John Klingberg into the equation and having a right side of McAvoy, Klingberg, and Carlo. Then you're able to have Klingberg either quarterback the second or first power play unit and have McAvoy on the other one instead of a guy like Matt Grzelcyk, who is okay in that role. but having Klingberg work the point on a power play would be a pretty significant upgrade, I feel like, over a guy like Matt Grzelcyk. So I love the idea of this for the Bruins, and for Dallas, I feel like you're getting pretty significant value for a player that likely isn't going to return in the offseason if he hits free agency. I mean, why would he? He already requested a trade. So basically, Dallas's hands are tied. They have to trade him. You'd be getting a guy here in Jake DeBrusk, who was a former first-round pick, has already had a 27-goal season. Maybe a new opportunity, a change of scenery can really spark him again and get him back to that level. You also give Vaakanainen and potentially a first-round pick if Klingberg were to re-sign in Boston, and if Boston were to give up this much in a package for him, I feel like they'd probably want to re-sign him. So I'm definitely a pretty big fan of this mock trade for both sides. I'm going to go ahead and say deal to this one for sure. Next up, we have a mock trade from Lemons, who says Arizona gets Bertuzzi plus Zadina plus 2022 second plus Colorado's 4th and Vegas's 4th, and Detroit gets Jacob Chychrun. If the Red Wings were to go out and pursue Jacob Chychrun and actually get him for a package like this, I would be through the roof. I think he would be the perfect fit for the Red Wings. He also fits the timeline with how Detroit's rebuild is kind of progressing. With that being said, though, I really don't think Arizona would be all that interested in a package like this. We just talked about Filip Zadina for a little bit. I'm still holding out hope that he can be at least like a 15 to 20 goal scorer, but he's definitely not like a can't miss player, a surefire top 6 guy. And although Bertuzzi is a top line contributor, he doesn't fit the timeline for the Arizona Coyotes. I mean, he's literally older than Jacob Chychrun, and also he's not the type of guy they could just then go and flip because, well, his trade value is kind of diminished with the whole, vaccine thing, him not being able to play in Canada. It really just throws a wrench into things. So for those reasons, I'm going to go ahead and say no deal to this one from Arizona's point of view. Moving on now, we have another mock trade centered around Jacob Chychrun. This one comes from Alex, who says to St. Louis, Jacob Chychrun, to Arizona, Scott Perunovich, Joel Hofer. Apparently that's who Bill Armstrong may be interested in, according to 32 Thoughts. Klim Kostin, and St. Louis's first-round pick in the 2022 draft. There likely would have to be a separate trade to make cap space work, but I trust Doug Armstrong could make it work. He's a cap wizard. I definitely think this trade would be more appealing to Arizona than the Bertuzzi and Zadina one that we just talked about. You're getting a first-round pick and also 3 future assets in terms of prospects here. Well, Perunovich not really a prospect anymore because he is a full-time member of the team, and I really like Scott Perunovich. I think he's having a real strong rookie season for the St. Louis Blues, but even though he's a rookie, he's 23 years old. He was also 23 years old, Jacob Chychrun. So would Arizona be interested in downgrading from Chychrun to Perunovich, who are, kind of the same age, and also getting Kostin, Joel Hofer, and a first-round pick? Is that enough for them to downgrade here? I'm not really sure. I mean, goaltenders you can't really predict, so Joel Hofer is kind of a big question mark. The first-round pick is likely going to be a later first-round pick, and Klim Kostin is, I don't really think, ever going to develop into a top 6 forward at this point. If you were to throw Jake Neighbors into this instead of Klim Kostin, so then it would be Joel Hofer, Scott Perunovich, Jake Neighbors, a first, and also maybe throwing like a second-round pick, then I think that's something Arizona would consider, and I would consider that kind of equal value. But for the particular mock trade you proposed, I'm going to say no deal. I really value Jacob Chychrun extremely high. 23 years old, was in the Norris conversation last season. He's cost controlled. He's on a fantastic contract. And guys like that can help you win now and also be a part of your long-term future don't come around very often. I feel like a team's going to have to give up a ton if they want to get Chychrun, but I will say this mock trade was really intriguing to me. I think Chychrun would be fantastic in St. Louis, and I do feel like the Blues have the kind of pieces as to where they could make something like this work. Next up, we have a mock trade from Hudson, who says to Edmonton, Jonas Korpisalo and a 2022 conditional 4th-round pick. If Columbus makes the playoffs, it turns into a 3rd-round pick. To Columbus, Mikko Koskinen and a 2023 3rd. So basically, for Columbus, you're just swapping Korpisalo for Koskinen and upgrading a 4th-round draft pick to a 3rd. I'm actually going to say deal to this one. I think it's a pretty solid mock trade. Basically, my logic here, if you're doing it for Columbus, is yes, you're getting an older and more expensive goaltender in the deal in Mikko Koskinen, but we all know that Korpisalo is leaving in the offseason. He basically made that pretty clear when they gave Elvis that extension. So why not just upgrade your 4th-round pick to a 3rd-round pick for free, pretty much? Because you don't have to re-sign Mikko Koskinen. He's also a free agent in the offseason. Then you'd have that, like 4-something million coming off the books. And for the Oilers, I mean, why wouldn't you do this? You got to shore up that goaltending situation somehow, and although Korpisalo may not be the answer, he has had a bit of an up and down track record throughout his career, but he's had some very good seasons before and also has had some incredible performances in the playoffs as well. So if they don't want to swing for the fences and go for a guy like Fleury, I feel like a smaller deal like this could definitely help them, so I'm going to go ahead and say deal to this one. Moving along now, we have another goalie mock trade here from Marcus, who says the Avs get Halak, Vancouver gets a third. Avs need insurance if Kemper is injured or keeps playing mediocre. Halak is a solid backup, and despite being in the late stages of his career, can steal a game or series on a good day. With Pavel Francouz being back and actually looking pretty solid, he actually just got a shutout last night. I don't really think Colorado is going to be all that desperate to, make a move to add another veteran goaltender just as insurance. And also, I don't really know why the Canucks would do this. I mean, although they're still kind of in a weird spot, they're trying to make the playoffs, and if you trade Yaroslav Halak and then Thatcher Demko goes down with an injury, you're basically screwed, right? So I'm going to say no deal to this one, just because Vancouver basically needs Yaroslav Halak as goaltending insurance, probably more than Colorado needs it at this point. Moving along now, we have a mock trade from Jaden, who says the Leafs get Jeremy Lauzon, Calle Yarncroke, the Kraken get Mac Hollowell, and a 2023 second round pick. I really like the idea of this mock trade. I think Calle Yarncroke is one of those guys that contending teams should be all over. He's put up really good defensive numbers as a forward, basically throughout his entire career. He's had a 15-goal season, and although he's not playing the greatest this year, I feel like that's a good thing for contending teams wanting to trade for him, because you probably won't have to give up as much for him as you would have, in years past if you're trying to get him from Nashville. We all know that the Leafs don't have a ton of cap space, so they probably can't go big fish hunting at this deadline, but Calle Yarncroke only makes $2 million, definitely something that they could make work, and you'd also just be adding depth and insurance to the blue line with Jeremy Lauzon, and maybe adding it to a blue line that has looked pretty poor over the past, couple of weeks, especially, the bottom pairing with Travis Dermott, who's been in and out of the line of Alex Biega. And for the Kraken, you're getting a second round pick for a guy like Yarncroke, who is going to be a UFA at the end of the season, probably doesn't fit into their long-term plans. I don't know how highly they think of Jeremy Lauzon, and you're getting Mac Hollowell, who is a 23-year-old defenseman, has put up solid numbers in the AHL over the past couple of seasons. There might be something there. This is definitely the type of deal that I could see happening on deadline day, so I'm going to say deal to this one for sure. And now for the final mock trade of the video from you guys, from Ryan the Meme Guy to the Rangers, JT Miller to the Canucks, a 2022 first round pick, 23 second round pick, and Vitaly Kravtsov. Reasoning: the Rangers get a hardworking leader that had received Hart votes before to help them compete for a Stanley Cup, and the Canucks get a few picks and a young promising player for the future. I did actually see a report the other day that apparently the Rangers are all over JT Miller, which is pretty interesting because that's where Miller started out his career. Although if this were to be offered to the Canucks, that would have to be a really tempting package for them. I just don't see them trading JT Miller, honestly. They are still trying to make the playoffs, and he's a heart and soul guy for that team. He's playing incredible this season, and I mean, he's been fantastic basically ever since coming to Vancouver. He's been like around a point a game player, so I just really can't see them moving him, even though this would be a very, very intriguing offer. I just really can't see Vancouver seriously entertaining that idea, especially given their current situation where they've, battled all the way back and they're in the playoff hunt. Imagine just taking off one of the best players from the team. I feel like that would be pretty discouraging for the fan base and to the locker room. Now, to finish off the video, I want to start doing this, at the end of the Deal or No Deals. I'm actually going to give a mock trade to you guys, and you guys can comment down below in the comment section if you would say deal or no deal to my proposed mock trade. I got this idea watching the Leafs play the Arizona Coyotes whenever that was, when Vizmelka had that fantastic game. I feel like it was like a week or so ago. The Coyotes have a player that I feel like would be a perfect fit on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he doesn't make a lot of money. They could definitely make it work, and that player is Lawson Crouse. So my proposed mock trade is Lawson Crouse to the Toronto Maple Leafs for Mikhail Abramov, Nick Ritchie just to make the money work, and a 2022 second round pick from Toronto. To me, Lawson Crouse would be the perfect fit for the Maple Leafs, and honestly bring basically everything to the table that the Leafs thought they were getting when they signed Nick Ritchie in the offseason. He's a very physical presence in the lineup. He can play up and down the lineup, first, second, third, or fourth line. I mean, think Toronto had Nick Ritchie on the first line at points this season. Lawson Crouse would fare a lot better in that role than Ritchie, in my opinion. I'd like him as a net front guy on the Leafs second power play unit, and also he only makes $1.5 million this season and is an RFA at the end of the season. So that is my proposed mock trade to you guys. You can let me know down below in the comment section if you think it makes sense, and if you were in my position and you were making a video like this, would you say deal or no deal? So that is going to wrap up the second Deal or No Deal episode of the 2021-22 season. You can let me know if you have any other mock trades down below in the comment section, something that you think maybe we could see happen around the deadline, or something that maybe you want to see happen. If you guys enjoyed today's video and you want to see another one of these before the trade deadline in a couple of months, then be sure to show your support. Let me know that you enjoyed, and while you're down there, leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. And if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.